is they discovered that the entire, underneath the ice, there's hundreds of volcanoes, okay? And let's see if I can share that. And lava flows, okay? You can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so under the Antarctic ice, hundreds of volcanoes, countless, and lava flows. So wait a minute. So in the 15 something to 1600, this dude draws a map that shows it was called Terra del Fuego. Okay, hundreds of years ago, we didn't have orbiting science platforms doing land analysis and looking through the ice. Okay, okay. So why is that important at all? Well, if I switch to the browser, does it switch?
Yeah, it switches. Yeah, back to the map.
Praise God. All right. So in this map, this is the overall screenshot. First of all, the east starts up here in the map, and the west goes down here at Terra del Fuego. The middle is not the north. We call Polaris the northern star. It's not the north. There's a magnetic field. By the way, there's no such thing as a southern polar field in a magnet. They are converging and diverging fields that go like a toroidal shape. That's how magnetism works. Okay, and those two diverging and converging fields attract one another, and if you both are converging, they repel. So all these ideas, these dualism ideas, okay, of north and south pole. So there must be a south pole. There is no such thing as a south pole. There isn't even anything as a north pole. It's magnetic north. But in this map, again, the dude was accurate enough to put in land of fire. Then hundreds of years later, we discover lava flows and hundreds of volcanoes. In this map, this is the north. This is the north. Okay? So this is what I'm getting at, is that even our understanding, everything is so askew. The great deception is so great that it's even hard to discern where east, west, south, north, and south is. Okay, and so this is the north. Again, on this map, and the dude got this area down here accurate, and no one.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating to me, and I'll be happy to.
What I find really fascinating about the areas that are called out on this Urbano Monte map is that they didn't have the technology to chart and use radar to find all of this green area and volcanoes in Antarctica, almost 500 years ago. And to me, it seems like that land in Antarctica, a lot of it was thawed out and it melted in certain regions of Antarctica, which is why it's showing on that map that there's these volcanoes and all this green area, because of these cycles that the sun and moon go through on the four quarters of the world map. As it gets closer to certain regions of Antarctica, it's going to thaw out those areas. You're going to see the land that's always been there, and ancient ruins and different features of past civilizations that were there are now going to be exposed. When you look into the mud floods, these structures that are half buried under the earth, and then they're exposed, and then ancient animals that are frozen in ice. They say with, Vibe the Cosmos says that the North Magnetic Pole moves and changes position every 2,167 years, so it makes a full cycle after 26,000 years. So with all these lands thawing out, and then other lands freezing over as it makes this cycle throughout the four quarters of the earth, you're going to have different regions of land, or outer lands, that are being thawed out, and those ancient civilizations, their history is going to be shown when these lands are thawed out, and it's going to cycle out every 2,167 years, which they would call an ice age, but that's just the natural process of the four-quarter Earth theory where we live. And even with the Urbano Monte map, you can see with Terra del Fuego, Terra Gallica, Terra Labac, you can see all these different specific lands that are called out on the map, Urbano Monte map, and these exact same shapes have been shown. They're shown on the map of the moon map. So it just goes to show that there's a lot of accuracies that were called out hundreds of years ago that they shouldn't have even known otherwise. But even it's more interesting when we look into ancient civilizations and what they spoke about the four-quarter Earth theory.
This is where it's going to get real exciting. This dude says, holy crap, the four quarters Earth guy, the circle, quarters, circle, and the cross is a Hopi symbol left by the Pahana, just listen, white brother, in the beginning of time. That symbol and the Swaz, I ain't going to say this word out loud, and the Yadadada, Swaz, oldest peace symbol was left to identify them. Pahana, when they returned to America, they disappeared shortly after leaving the symbols. That makes perfect sense, he says. And I'm like, what? Pahana, Swazi, what are you talking about, dude? So, whoa, hold on a second. Let's go back to this map. So this is divided into four quarters, and each quarter is inhabitable. When the sun's there, then that would be the present quarter, or the present dwelling place. The other three would be the past three worlds. I'm going to let that resonate. I'm going to let just that sink in for a minute for you. Now, I'm not using this as any kind of, this isn't about white people. This isn't, whatever. It's not about that. These were tall, pale-skinned people. And literally, the people who have come out of underground bases have talked about the tall whites. There's the tall whites, the small grays, all this other stuff. The past 3 worlds. Crazy. The how people travel the white man's path. See, they made this about race. I don't think it's about human race. I almost believe this is a different kind of spiritual being, okay? The 2 circles on the lower path of life, the great shaking of the earth, World Wars 1 and 2, the Swas, the sun, and the Celtic cross represent the 2 helpers of Pahana and the true white brother. See, I think people made this about race when it's not. I think it was these beings, possibly angels, you know. Who knows?
What if these ancient hieroglyphs from this ancient Hopi civilization actually has a lot more truth to it than we're told? What if these encounters that these ancient civilizations had with these tall white beings from their hieroglyphics actually match up with a lot of the extraterrestrial encounters with these alleged tall white beings, or these Nordic giant beings that are, described as these tall white fair-skinned beings that look like humans with blonde hair, that have been noted by the likes of Billy Meyer and George Hall from the 1970s and earlier? What if all of these accounts from people going to the alleged geographic North Pole, coming into encounters with these giant human beings that have, again, fair light skin, and they call them the tall white beings? So what if these alleged tall white beings that are spoke of in these ancient civilizations are not, these extraterrestrials from light years away, but are actually from the geographical center of our known realm, or what some people would consider Hyperborea? What would be considered the 7th circle, the area that always has persistent light and the light never goes out, the kingdom in the center of our known realm. And what if these tall white beings are much more advanced than us because they don't have the interruption from the powers that be? They don't live in this, prison planet that we're told it is. They have a much better understanding of the reality of where we live, and they were able to tap into the ether and the magnetic field. They know about electrostatics and electrostatic propulsion, and they've been able to navigate throughout this known realm. And for all we know, they could be coming to our known lands, and they're surveillancing us, and they may be working with other powers that we don't even know of in the lands that we know of. And these beings are just like us. They're just more advanced, and they have a better understanding of the nature of our reality. And this UFOlogy that we know in the mainstream is a huge psyop. It's a cover-up to cover up these other human-like beings from, if you want to call them the Outer Lands or the Garden of Eden or Hyperborea, essentially the center of our realm. And that's what the UFOlogy is covering up. It's one large psyop to cover up the true nature of these other human beings from the center of our known realm. What if even the Gleason's map is not what we're told it is? What if the Gleason's map was all part of the plan? What if they were only wanting to give us a quarter of the truth? When you think about when you first got into Flat Earth, the first map that most people mention is the flat Gleason's AE map. What if the powers that be knew that the Flat Earth movement was inevitable? And once they knew that millions of people would find out and know that the Earth is flat, they had to release another psyop, another prison planet version of the Flat Earth. What if they released this Gleason's map to the gatekeepers of the Flat Earth movement to have people continue to believe that they live in this enclosed prison planet version of Flat Earth, with Antarctica circling the outside and the firmament enclosing them in this enclosed system? Now, this doesn't take away from the Gleason's map. If anything, it only further validates the Gleason's map as being a true integral part of our true reality. But what if this was part of the plan? What if the powers that be only wanted us to know a quarter of the truth?
If everything we thought we knew about Flat Earth was only a fraction of the truth, 1/4 of the truth to be exact. First, have you seen the moon map projection, where they take the moon and map out the dark spots on it, and they'll show that 1/4 is our known Earth, our known Flat Earth model? Now, we've all seen the clock in Prague, but I want to point something out. You notice the constellation ring here, and the sun and the moon are actually connected right here in the center, showing that the sun and moon go around this constellation wheel. And some say that this constellation wheel might slowly but surely, over maybe thousands of years, move around this bigger circle. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. If that's the case, and the sun's trajectory is warming this land, but then also moving through 4 quarters, right? Then that would mean that this area of ice would be melting and the rest would be freezing. So when I asked Google where Antarctica's ice caps are melting, it's the western area of Antarctica. When I asked where they are constantly freezing, they said the eastern region. Where's the eastern region? Everywhere else in Antarctica. Believe it or not, this is how Antarctica is divided. So where is this western region on the Flat Earth map? Well, let's just say if this were moving around in a circle, this little part would be the one melting, and the rest would be freezing. So then I was looking at the Mercator map, and none of these regions look familiar. But it is weird how they all are in 4 quarters. A clock is sectioned in 4 quarters. Several cosmological and mythological systems portray 4 corners, or 4 quarters. In the Book of Enoch, he talks about the 4 quarters. And several verses talk about the 4 quarters. Then you look at the definition of quarter, and one is each 4 equal or corresponding parts into which something is or can be divided, right? Then another definition is the place in which you can dwell, a specific place. Here's what's nuts though. So this is a quarter, as in 1/4 of the whole area, but then it's also a quarter, the place in which we can dwell. What? So with this generalized idea, what else does it explain? Well, it explains lands beyond the ice wall, extra lands. Maybe not this or this, but maybe it's this they're trying to deflect us from. Also, global warming. A lot of people want you to think that the world is getting sicker, and then you've got your conspiracy guys who say it's just a big old money grab, global warming. But what if it's just the natural cycle of our reality? Every so 1,000 years, this moves into another quarter, causing an ice age? Yeah, it would explain ice ages. Because I mean, if we're being real, there have been some pretty neat discoveries made of animals in ice. Undigested food in their stomachs. It would kind of explain mud floods. Hey, they found old world pyramids and buildings in ice. It seems we're always given partial truths on things. Now, I'm not saying that this theory is one that I believe or disbelieve, but it's interesting nonetheless. Look into it. That's the crazy thing. With global warming, all they're talking about is the ice caps freezing. Antarctica freezing. But on the other side, simultaneously, melting. They're talking about the ice melting and all this stuff. But simultaneously, on the other side, it's freezing. So that's what they don't tell you, yeah. It's an equal and opposite thing. So it's like, climate is changing, but it's due to something else.
Yeah, and we're continually getting gaslit on every corner, you know what I mean?
Hold on. So, on a ball, if on the bottom of a ball,
formed. But if some kind of radiation beams were responsible, then the first image, the land masses of our greater realm, were most likely captured as the rays hit the firmament. And as those rays were reflected into our ionosphere and began forming the plasma mass we call the moon, it is likely that the second image was captured. And that is the image of the firmament, of the structure existing above us. And that's why we can see the outline of this structure, the stars beyond this structure, and the reflection of the vortex and other great deeps below. The moon is a masterpiece of distorted perspective, a plasma embodiment of as above, so below. The North Magnetic Pole is slowly moving, and it is as natural as the sun and moon's concentric journey above us. And this is why the symbol of the black sun is a 12-spoked wheel. Each spoke represents a fixed constellation of the zodiac. Each section is an individual age. And the result is a situation like this. Every 2,160 years, our North Magnetic Pole circles the inner solid core and vortex by 30 degrees. This is why the pole has moved from Canada and is en route to Siberia. It is traversing the outer central circle, or what is more appropriately termed, the magnetic circle. We live inside of a perfect clock, inside of God's clock. The sun and moon circle our magnetic North Pole, which is situated roughly at the center of our known world's landmass. But this magnetic North Pole circles the inner vortex and completes a full revolution every 25,920 years, or what is referred to as a great year. Each great year consists of 12 precessional or astronomical ages of 2,160 years each. We are on the cusp of entering the age of Aquarius, and this is why our magnetic North Pole is en route to Siberia. As a North Magnetic Pole circumvents the central magnetic circle, the toroidal magnetic field moves with it. The sun and moon are bound in their revolution by our magnetic North Pole. And because of this, they move within our magnetic toroidal field only. This is why the magnetic North Pole will always be the center of our known world. As I said before, the first image of the landmass presented in the moon's face is likely akin to an X-ray image and has not captured any water mass. And because of this, it has only recorded the areas of our realm with high density, such as the land. In the same way, an X-ray image will capture the parts of our bodies with the highest density, like the bone, but not the blood in our veins. In a sense, it is appropriate to view the landmass captured here as skeletal. And because of this, it has not captured the water or ocean surrounding our land, nor does it display a differentiation between the frozen landmass and that which is not frozen. If the sun's concentric journey above us is bound by the North Magnetic Pole here and its magnetic toroidal field, and this entire magnetic field is moving with the pole, then it is likely we have a situation of a changing climate as this process unfolds. All areas outside of our magnetic field will inevitably be frozen and dark due to the lack of sunlight. And this is consistent with what some of the scriptures have told us. I saw the great rivers, and I came to the great river, and to the great darkness, and went to the place where no flesh walks. I saw the mountains of the darkness of winter. This is your ice wall, and it's not a constant, fixed wall. it is continually melting and refreezing with the revolution of the pole over the course of a great year and each astronomical age. Do you now understand why they are terrified of the ice melting, of our Earth supposedly heating up, and why this demonic joke of a man wants to dim the sun? They are using natural climate change due to the rotation of the magnetic pole to justify a whole host of useless measures and money laundering. They are terrified because they are on the verge of losing all control of the narrative. We must save the precious Antarctica from melting, the last unspoiled place on Earth. But as you can see, there is no landmass for us to call Antarctica. It is a complete lie. When they refer to Antarctica, there is only the Antarctic Circle, and a lot of the footage at the so-called Antarctica could have been taken at any location around this circle. As you can also see, the landmasses of South America, New Zealand, and Australia all fall within close proximity to the outer edge of the greater world map, and would therefore be within close proximity to the foundations of the firmament itself. This is most likely the reason there is heavy military presence in these regions. The changing climate, the melting of the Antarctic Circle, is as natural as day and night. It is a macro process of the larger clock we live within.
Okay, most of us have been told that they didn't even know the United States, the landmass of the United States existed as it is. Well, that is not true. And this is pretty spot on, okay? So here's what's interesting, though. And I came across this years ago. This area down here, now I got a copy of this map from one of my subscribers, bought me one. It's a 10 by 10 image. This right down here, see it's in red? Now this represents the Antarctica land masses. It's in red because it was called, now again, remember, this is 16th century. It's called Terra del Fuego, land of fire. Okay, again, this is 16th century, Terra del Fuego, land of fire. Okay.
Wonder why it would be called that.
Well, wait a minute. Hey, good question. So I'm going to show you something else that's really interesting. Let me stop sharing this here. What had happened is they discovered that the entire, underneath the ice, there's hundreds of volcanoes. Okay?
You know what I mean?
Hold on. So on a ball, if you on the bottom of a ball that's, rotating once every 24 hours, like they say, how is it possible that only half of Antarctica could be melting? And the other half is freezing even worse. Like you said, that would be impossible on the ball because, you know what I mean? It's supposed to be making one full rotation every day. So that can't make any sense for only half of Antarctica to be melting on any other model except the one you just showed us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way that could make sense. The only way it could be possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do they... Wow. And these Globers will believe anything.
Oh my gosh, I know. And that's what I think it is. I think it's a long game. And a lot of people were saying that Eric, and I don't know. I'm just going to throw this out, what I've heard other people say, that, Eric Dubé was possibly the gatekeeper for Flat Earth. Like, he was the one who hit the scene, presented the map and everything. People were concerned that he was invited to a lot of conventions, a lot of public get-togethers on the Flat Earth to speak and to different things, but he didn't show up to a lot of those things, so it drew a lot of attention to people's minds saying, well, maybe he's a shill of sorts. Now, I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is, if someone had a map and they presented it and showed it, right, and that map had the same limits that a globe did, then it would be a little bit strange, and it would almost make you feel like, okay, so if this news were getting out, like let's say that it was getting out, let's say this was getting out, let's say the moon map, the more lands and all that stuff was getting ready to hit the scene. There's been already a few people figuring it out, and the news is spreading quick. I mean, if you were the government that was concealing it and you saw how fast it was spreading, wouldn't you think to yourself, okay, we couldn't stop this at the first gate, so now we need to set up another gate. They figured out it's flat, we're not going to keep them from doing that, but now we need to limit them. Now we need to stop them at the ice wall and have them not go beyond, like literally and figuratively, we got to stop them at the ice wall. We can't let them get beyond that ice and know that there's, more land and stuff like that. Which is this, right?
Right.
And this.
But and honestly, that's a good point that you bring up, because that's the whole point in gatekeepers. As far as I feel like confidently that Alex Jones would be one of those. These gatekeepers, they bring you a lot of truth, but they only bring you up to a certain point, and they'll never take you past that point. You know what I mean? And you brought Dubé. I'm not saying I don't know enough about him to say yes or no. I know he has a lot of good info, but the purpose of a gatekeeper is to give you a lot of truth, but then keep you in this little box, and you can't go outside that little box. You know what I'm saying? And it's just crazy how that's just so prevalent today. A lot of people, even in like politics and stuff, they're like, oh, these people are alternative media, whenever they're just basically parroting the same thing that the mainstream is, and they're just slightly giving a different take. Like they don't have any new stuff that they come out. It's just like their whole, say, like YouTube channel is just literally following mainstream media headlines and then just giving their little counter spin on it. Like they have nothing new to offer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a truth sandwich. They sandwich the lie in between two truths, and it's like you can't see the lie for the two truths that it's in between, you know. So it's like you go take a bite, and it looks so cheesy. Top bread's truth, bottom bread's truth. It's gonna be great, and then finish the live read it. That's it.
That's it. That's funny.
It's so true. It's how they get us, man.
Once we start to look at this German moon map and this four-quarter Earth theory, it starts to tie all the pieces of the puzzle together, from our personal atmospheric dome and our azimuthal grid of vision to the trajectories of the sun and the moon, and even the dome firmament that showed above the Earth on the actual moon map. And we can even see with the four quarters of the Earth that it explains the four quarters of the Earth that are told in the biblical scriptures in the book of Enoch. It also explains the 7 circles in the seed of life, which again, these the path that these heavenly bodies follow allow there to always be lights in the center of this earth realm, which explains Hyperborea, it explains Mount Meru, it explains the Garden of Eden, if you will, the light that never goes out in this very center, this geographical North Pole, which, you know, it could explain the other beings from outer lands and outer lands beyond Antarctica. This even explains the black magnetic mountain in the middle, or Rupus Nigra, or Mount Meru, or, you know, Hyperborea, which, again, this is where the toroidal field and the electromagnetism is centered from this black magnetic mountain in the middle. And, you know, it ties all of this sacred geometry and these toroidal paths together all into one map, into one model that, you know, has been hiding in front of us in plain sight this whole time. You know, we look at it every night when we look at the moon, and it starts to make sense why they've gone to such great lengths, the powers that be, to cover this up, to deceive us, to have these psyops and distractions, because the secret's right there in front of us, and it all makes sense, and everything ties perfectly together.
All the while the pole is shifting. How about the sun's moving? How about maybe it will cause some cataclysms? How about they already have the plan and are stationed up? If this is true, and there's a way out, and they section us off here and just give us doom our whole lives and say, oh, that's just the way it is, you know, we'll be here and, well, the poles will shift and then we'll all be gone. Then they could rewrite history as many times as they wanted, and no one could ever do anything about it. They could do anything they wanted.
And what do the scriptures have to say about this? It's right there in Enoch's reference to the four quarters of the world. Our magnetic field, according to Enoch, lies in the geographic north of the greater realm. And the first quarter is called the east, because it is the first. And the second, the south, because the Most High will descend there. And the west quarter is named the diminished. And the fourth quarter, named the north, is divided into 3 parts. First of them is for the dwelling of men. The second contains seas of water, the abysses and forests and rivers, and darkness and clouds. And the third part, the garden of righteousness.
A new map appeared showing a flat Earth map and the lands beyond the Antarctic wall. It looks like a flat Earth moon map. It's unknown where this map is from, but some people claim it's from the United Nations. The map has a lot of details describing how everything works. It's written in German, but I will try giving you the English translation by using Google Translator. So I am sorry if there is errors or if something doesn't make sense. Enoch section 4, chapter 18. And I saw the vessels of all winds, and saw how he adorned the whole shed with them, and the foundations of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth, and saw the 4 winds that carry the earth, and the firmament of heaven. And I saw how the winds stretch out the heights of heaven, and they hover between heaven and earth. These are the 4 pillars of all heaven. And I saw the winds that turn the heavens, that bring down the circle of the sun and all the stars.